Today, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the top 5 decks moving into the Age of Overlord format. These are decks expected to top a lot. They're going to have a lot of representation and sometimes outright win events, so you definitely don't want to be underprepared for these decks.
Just 5 decks? What about my deck, Tom?
You're right. You know what, this time it's a pretty diverse format, so I will include a list of other high potential decks that are likely to top, if not outright win the event. These are high potential decks, but this is more likely going to relate to the skill of the player more than the deck itself. So these are the people that really grinded out their decks and figured out everything. Without further ado, let's jump in. Deck number 1, that's gotta be Unchained. Moving over from its top spot in Duelist Nexus into Age of Overlord, it's still going to hold a very high position. It develops boards such as High Wave King Caesar with Unchained Soul of Rage. That on its own is already 3 levels of disruption, 2 summon negations, and 1 removal against one of your monsters that can lead into perhaps a unicorn, phoenix, all sorts of different monsters that it can lead into. So that's technically a removal and a double removal, so that's 4 on just 2 monsters. That's already really strong. Not to mention there's a back row that could potentially either increase their survivability by summoning a monster from their graveyard, making things really hard. And by the way, if you special summon out the Link Yama from the graveyard, it also adds a card and dumps a card into the grave. So yeah, that's on special summon, that's not on link summon, so that provides them with a follow if you didn't clean it up properly. If you destroy one of the monsters, they're going to get another way to revive a monster from the graveyard. So they have a lot of survivability that will lead into follow-up, and their follow-up game is also very, very strong. Not to mention their combo game, even if you do throw a Nibiru at them, they're not completely dead in the water, so you definitely need to follow with the Nibiru, otherwise you're not likely going to take game that easily. They have ways to build their board, and they have a lot of centigrade effects, and this deck definitely has been a pro player choice for some time now. To beat them, quite simply, you have to stop them from developing 2 things, their graveyard and their field. If they get their graveyard developed, they're going to have the follow-up. If they get their board developed, you can't really play. So you can use cards like Nibiru. Nibiru is mainly there to kind of stun them out from developing the full board. So that's one. They're likely going to be able to follow it if they're a good player. But if you can follow it with a graveyard disruption, then you're pretty much good to go. The other thing would be to hit them stuff with DD Crow. You can hit them with There Can Be Only One, or even Abyss Dweller. These are all really fantastic cards. But you just have to keep in mind that if you try to use cards like evenly match against them, they can attempt to destroy their own cards, and because they destroy their own cards, Lord Yama is going to provide them with a follow and rebuild their board for them after your evenly match. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, but that's also why this deck is so strong. So, you know, there you go. Deck number 1. Deck number 2, Sinful Spoil Rescue Ace. Now, Rescue Ace definitely wasn't as popular as the Unchained Train. However, that's about to be challenged thanks to the Sinful Spoil cards. The Sinful Spoil cards, mainly the Diabell Star, the Origin Sins, I can't read these are Japanese, and this one is the Wanted poster. These cards are incredible, but you know, Rescue Ace on their own is still like no slouch. If you can get Turbulence to activate the effect and leave a Hydrant on board so that the 2 trap cards, Extinguish and Contain, can just lock out your opponent, they really don't get the turn, and you can pretty much get your turn back and you can focus on the OTK. The main deck monsters are already very strong. You have Book of Moon, you have a Pop, you also have a Negate just by base, but on top of that, you can also make a full use of your extra deck by having just link monsters, because you do not really use your extra deck. So you have now access to IP into SP, and if you really want to OTK people, you have access code as well. So that is fully available for that deck. Although it does suffer a little bit of weakness from evenly match, but people do try to circumvent that by giving the opponent an Ibli. So there's that to think about. And this deck can also quite easily make an Abyss Dweller, especially if they know that matchup. But what makes these cards so strong, so good, essentially it's a 1-for-1 plus Upstart engine that's shoved into just one card. Mainly the quick play spell, the Wanted, whatever this thing is. I don't really know what the name of this card is. But this one searches out the Diabell Star straight from the deck. Because this is a quick play spell, you can activate during draw phase. Draw phase, add this card. During the main phase, this card does not activate. You can special summon by sending a card on the field or in your hand to the graveyard to special summon out Diabell Star. Diabell Star will activate, and that's going to set onto the field this card, which is the Origin, I think. Origin of the Sinful Spoils. Set it onto the field. You can activate it, send it away, boom, and then you get to summon a level 1. Now, what if they say, oh, they ashed the card, you lost your monster? Well, if they ash the card, then you activate this card in the graveyard, shuffling this to the bottom of the deck, and then draw a card. So you've kind of lost nothing. So in other words, this is a very free engine, and now you can cycle it again because this card can add Diabell Star from the graveyard as well. So yeah, that's why people are really looking forward to playing Sinful Spoil Rescue Ace, because it's super consistent. It's like having just 4 copies of 1-for-1 in your deck. So now you can use this as a new line of start rather than just solely relying on Air Hoister or maybe a 2-card opening from just Hydrant plus another card. If you like this video so far, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. Really appreciate you guys for doing so. We're at 95k. We're almost there at the 100k mark, and that would mean so much to me. So I guess I'm throwing an extra reminder to hit that subscribe button if you've been watching our stuff. And we've got a lot of age stuff coming up, so you definitely don't want to miss out. Deck number 3, it's got to be the Pearly. Pearly is an exceptionally strong deck, especially when they still have 3 Sleepy Memory. They're going to be able to draw a ton of cards during the opponent's standby phase, and that's one of their key recovery points because they do come in a lot of cards on their turn 1, building up into getting the field spell, getting into the continuous spell, because those are the 2 cards that provide them with the most amount of recovery. I mean, if you remove any of their Pearly Xyz monster, they're just going to add 3 cards and summon back a monster. And so if they drew 4 cards during your standby phase, well, they're more or less playing with a full set of cards ready to just go off on you and just overwhelm you entirely. That's what they do, and that's what they do best. And they have aggression lines such as if you leave monsters on board, they can use that to gain a lot of advantage through just using Pearly Happiness and just keep punching you and just keep on adding more and more cards. So what should you do about them? So the game 1 is going to be pretty difficult, but the games 2 and 3, you definitely have different approaches you can go for. You can either remove the Pearly Noir after it comes out after the fact, but that also means that your opponent will be able to draw the 4 cards, or you prevent the drawing and the monster from hitting onto the field by using quick play spells such as Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse. You can just clear it off, or you can even use cards like Xyz Encore to split them apart and make sure that they don't get the cards to draw. The very key thing here is you're basically trying to clear off a lot of the cards on the field, and it's usually not that easy. A lot of people tend to forget that, hey, some of these Pearly cards, they protect cards from being destroyed by card effects till the end of the next turn, and therefore when you try to remove them, they stay on the field and you wasted your resource committing into that play. So these are things that people need to be mindful, because if you have a terrible memory and you forget which card is being protected, you're going to have a very, very tough time. But you can definitely ask your opponent which cards are currently being protected, because the effects are still being applied. So that's still pretty much public knowledge at this point. But that being said, this is definitely one of the stronger decks. If you still have the deck, then you know what, you're still in for a pretty solid season. Deck number 4, Branded Chimera. This was my choice deck for Duelist Nexus for good reason. It's a 1-card combo deck and you can play a ton of disruption. You can hand rip your opponent, and if you have tactics and they play a hand trap, basically you get to win. It's so easy when you play it like that. But on the other hand, this deck also gained a huge boost in Age of Overlord through the use of their new fusion and their new illusion monster, Master Tau. So let's kind of get into those. So what's the new fusion monster? That's the Fusion Baphomet, which also counts as a Chimera, the flying mythical beast. So you have another copy of a card that counts as a very important name. So that's one key thing here. What does it do? It's 2400 attack, and it sends an illusion monster into the graveyard on summon. I think it sends any of them, I can't remember, but like it sends an illusion, and there is a new illusion monster in that lineup, which is Master Tau, which special summons back another illusion from the graveyard. But once it does that, you are locked into summoning illusions from the graveyard. So you can still continue to do your fusion summons. It's just that you're going to be locked out of graveyard summoning, which is not very common. Typically, you only do that during your opponent's turn anyway to kind of block a hit. The other effect of Baphomet is that in the graveyard, it can banish and then summon back one of the banished Beast Fiend illusion monsters onto the field. So that on its own is already really, really solid, because you can cycle back your Phantom Kings. So therefore your management in the graveyard is like not as tight. One of the more subtle but impactful plays added to this deck would be super polying with your opponent's cards using illusion monsters, because the new Baphomet requires, well, any 2 Fiend Illusion or Beast type monsters, as long as both materials are different types. So now illusion monsters can be a part of it. So you can say normal summon out your Mirror Sword Knight, activate Super Poly on your opponent's High Wave King Caesar and your own card, summon out Baphomet. Baphomet dumps the Master Tau into the graveyard. Now you can special summon back the Mirror Sword Knight. And you also clear the High Wave King Caesar. You can now activate your Mirror Sword Knight, and then you can summon out Baphomet. Baphomet adds the 2 cards, and now you have more fusions ready. And you might be like, oh, why don't they use the Unchained Soul of Rage? Well, you can get to a point where you get to just immediately just activate Chimera Fusion, and then boom, all of a sudden they're in a really, really tight spot. So I think I do like that line, and it just makes illusion monsters that much more better. Deck number 5, Tement and Tement Horus. Telements have already proven themselves post ban lists in YCS Dormant. They've taken a lot of top spots, and because of that, I don't think the Horus cards are absolutely necessary, but it might create a variation on the deck. It could make it even more powerful. They can set up negation. I mean, rank 8 engine is one of the most diverse Xyz toolbox in the entire game. Way better than rank 7 engine. Rank 7 engine, really, it was Arise Heart, Big Eye, Draco Sack, maybe Dark Arm. That's really about it. But when it comes to rank 8, you've got monster negation, you got spell negation, you have basically every possible form of negation and destruction available, and card stealing if you really want to go in that direction. So this is going to be an option for Telement players, and making it a bit more diverse. They don't automatically lose to like Bestial Druid Swarm, because the Horus cards, they are not just dark. I believe one of them is dark, but the other ones are different attributes, which gives you access to those monsters, and they're not exactly the smallest monsters either, so it will also be able to provide additional damage to go for OTK. Not that they need it, but they have it. So something to definitely look forward to. Another graveyard based strategy where if they get the sarcophagus, they can just dump all their monsters out. And funny thing is, they could potentially just try to exchange most of their cards, getting themselves into the Horus cards, and then try to just focus all the milling strictly on the Telement side. So these are some of the options available, and this is something I'm looking forward to seeing, because I really don't know how strong it's going to be in TCG. We don't have Max C, so this is going to go off a little bit less punished than I would like. Before we continue, check out MSTmerch.com. We have restocked on a lot of the essentials, and Ulti Egos, we made one restock on it, so this is your chance. We basically ran out down to like single digits. Now they're back. Get them while you guys still can. You guys can get them in bundles with the protectors. But of course, we also have, you know, oversleeves. We have our essentials whites, blacks, and of course the pinks that you guys seem to made fly off the shelves. Really appreciate you guys for doing so. And if you guys need to sort your collection, we have box dividers, we have tabs to sort your collection as well. Check out those as well. And we also have mats available for you guys to check out. So any of your card game essentials, check out MSTmerch.com. Really appreciate it. Really helps me out. Thank you guys. Let's continue. Okay, now here's a list of all the other decks that are fully capable of winning complete matches and maybe just taking entire events. We have Rika, of course, Icy Storm the winner. We have Vanquishal, second place. Flunderies, don't underestimate them, they're still the D-Shifter deck. Dragon Link, Sprite, Blackwing, Makonko, Salamangreat, Drytron, Kashtira. Well, if there's a deck that you think I missed that deserves to be on here, well, leave it down in the comment section. I'll give you guys my opinion on that deck. Whether I believe it or not, you better explain yourself, because I have my sights on these ones for sure. But if you want to open my eyes, I'm going to be combing through the comments to see what you guys have to say. That's it for this video, guys. Two things coming up. One is going to be a live duel with me versus Nishi. I'm playing Sinful Spoil Rescue Ace. He's playing the Unchained deck. We're going to see how those two kind of match up. It's a scrim, so it's kind of a neat to see our interaction and our banters and whatnot. And then the second thing is I'm going to bring back Ultimate Counter Guide. I didn't really get much of a chance in the last season because, well, I went to Japan, so you know the format just wasn't really defined, and there was a pretty short season. So I'm going to bring Ultimate Counter Guide, so we're going to look at some of the more effective cards. But if you want, you know, a pre-taste of that, I already made a video about, you know, the meta trends of what people are playing now and what to expect. So some of these cards will just give you a lot more coverage when it comes to a variety of matchups, especially in a diverse format. Well, that's it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for hitting the like, subscribe, ding notification bell, and I'll see you all in the next one.